Annie Shapiro, welcome to the Art Dealer Podcast. Thanks for chatting with me today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I've been looking forward to this. It's been kind of in the works for a little while now, I think a month plus, and I was like, all right, finally the day.
Hooray, same. It's been a wild summer of lots of things happening.
I agree with that. Why don't we start with some, basics? Because I like the story. I always admired Anthony Bourdain for his ability to get to the story, to the root of things. Like, I feel this way, but why do you feel this way? So, where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I was born and spent all of my formative years in Charleston, West Virginia. I have seemingly lost the accent since I've been out of West Virginia at this point longer than I was living there. But I was a competitive figure skater from basically like 9 until the end of college. And honestly, like my love for music, I think was very much tied into that. And I don't know that I ever realized that my love for music was kind of separate from that
Mm.
because my friends and I would gather at my house to record the music that we would skate to in between like people doing their programs and things. Um, Artfully from my parents' sound system. They had a sound system set up that had vinyl plugged in, so we could play their records and make sort of the ultimate mix that would air sort of as people were doing their like warm ups and things. And that was always like my life on the weekends, just like listening to making mixes, like doing all of that. And never really ever did I think that that would turn into something professional. But I think the root of my love for music kind of started living in a place where like I couldn't go to concerts regularly. There was like an arena, but like no other concert venues sort of around, and a place where I truly like depended on the radio to introduce me to whatever was current and happening at the time.
That's really fascinating because immediately my mind went to production, right? Because figure skating, if you think of it, it's an arena and there's music around, and then there's choreography, and I've been in and around some figure skating. Or I remember when I was in Europe, I guess in my high school years in the late '90s, I saw like was it Kurt Browning and was it I can't remember Schilling Browning. There's a couple,
Browning,
yeah. Uh,
shilling baseball, Browning ice skating.
who was the other person that was super formative, male figure skater around the Kurt Browning era?
Like Brian Botano.
Yes, Brian
Yeah.
Boitano. So those are the two names that were super popular then. And then obviously you had like Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding and that whole ordeal. But there was so much to it from the costumes to this. Do you think that that is kind of almost like imprinted in you and what led you to video?
I mean, in a way, for sure. All of that was an artistic expression of sorts. And, working in production is a lot of artistic expression. My sort of role these days is much more on the liaising side as opposed to the creative side. But that does not come without trying to find creative solutions to things as we go through the process. But I think I've always kind of been drawn to things that are visual, things that are artistic, and most importantly things that are rooted in music. And I think though ice skating obviously is a sport and training and involves a lot of skill and a lot of athleticism, it really wouldn't exist without like its link to music and the choreography, and that part was always very, very important to me and remains important to me.
So young Annie is figure skating. She's recording the music or grabbing the music that she's going to use. Um, what was the type of music that you first fell in love with, and was it from your parents' collection? Like, how did your initial discovery happen?
I mean, it was like a real mixture. It was like the pop music of the era. I mean, I'm going to date myself by saying this, but like TLC, Bobby Brown, Sublime, Rusted Roots, Spin Doctors sort of went from pop and R&B straight into the Nirvana Soundgarden era and the sort of rise of alternative music in the early mid and late 90s. And that all came mostly from the radio, but my parents have pretty impeccable music taste as well. Um, full Beatles vinyl collection, Beach Boys, all of that was constantly playing at my house. My dad, in a moment of weakness, definitely played a lot of Phil Collins, which I still appreciate, and my husband and I constantly debate on the ins and outs of whether or not we should be fans of Phil Collins. He feels strongly the opposite way. But I think it was like a real good mixture of good influences and mostly good listening habits of like having music on and around, whether it was driving around in the car or playing at home in our like fancy, or what I thought was crazy at the time, set up in like the family room. Or it was going to the mall and buying music at the local record store. All of it kind of just added up to the fact that it was like always around. But on the ice skating side, it was super traditional, classical, movie soundtracks, the whole nine. No music with words at that point in time in ice skating. So it was actually kind of nice because like it raised my interest in all types of music outside of sort of the pop sphere. And we try to do like jazz on Sundays at our house so that our I have a 3-year-old, so that our son is like being exposed to all of the things. And I think part of the reason I have sort of a full love for music outside of the typical genres is the fact that it was like kind of constantly present in my life, especially when I was growing up.
That sounds very similar to my upbringing. My grandfather, my families came from Europe. They fled communism, and I think from Czechoslovakia, former Czechoslovakia, they went. Well, at least my grandfather did. Went through Germany before coming to Canada, and he worked at Deutsche Grammophon, and he was a pianist, and he was huge into classical music. And then that was his love and his passion. So growing up, I had like the classical influence from a lot of my family, but then I also had my mom and dad who were equally into classic rock, like CCR, Stones, Beatles, but then also blues and jazz. So I kind of listened to a little bit of all that, and then I discovered hip hop, and then I discovered rock, and then it was like metal, electronic, R&B, drum and bass, soul. The list goes on. Uh, and I think it's super important. I'm doing the same for my kids. I have a 5 and a 7-year old, and they listen. They know how to sing "Enter Sandman" and "Fight for Right to Party," and they know how to identify the Offspring and Nirvana. But then we also listen to, Sirius, and when we're in the car, it's jazz, it's blues, it's kids bop. It's a bit of everything.
Yeah, we definitely have a playlist that we constantly update for my son that is like everything from like the original Mickey Mouse countdown to like Chapel Roan. And we live in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn, and on our way to school, we walk by a Biggie mural every day.
Oh,
And
I
so
know the one.
he knows Biggie, like obviously we've played a lot of that around him. Now we've reached an age where he's repeating lyrics, so have to be a little bit more careful on what we're playing just around and about the house. But like definitely trying to like immerse him in music, both from his era, from our eras, from all eras, and also uh, have him know where he's from and the significance of that as well.
I think it's key. It's funny is I mean, you get older and you start to realize that a lot of the things your parents did for you, you didn't appreciate until later. I was,
Yeah.
forced to play piano. I was forced to learn languages. I was forced to go to Broadway. And when you're in your teens or younger, you're like, you don't necessarily appreciate it or even like it. And then all of a sudden, one day you pick up the guitar and you're playing guitar and you're like, oh, this makes sense. And it's probably because I played the piano and I read, music sheets and or sheet music and all that stuff. So I think that giving them lots of variety with music is helpful. It's going to expand their mind and lead them to whatever it is that they love and they want to do. You mentioned Rusted Root. That was a throwback. I was surprised to hear that. Good for you.
I was like, I firmly live by the statement that everything connects back to ska. Some of like my most important music business relationships and like sort of even just listenings and bringing me to specific places have all been linked by the very small subgenre of ska music. And like it's been a very random sort of link throughout my life. So I was like to bring up like Rusted Root or Real Big Fish or one of those, just because like some of my most important friendships and relationships in the business have weirdly like gone back to that.
That's so funny. We talked before we started to record about like people in the industry, and when you find good people, you kind of foster relationships with them. So, fun fact: one of my friends from high school in Prague is now working at Indigoot in Brooklyn. I mean, he's been at Indigoot for a long time. His name's Geither. I think most people know him as G. But he's probably your neighbor, and he was the person that in high school in Prague was like ska. I never got into ska, but I remember like my uh, introduction to that was through him, and well, he just happens to be a Brooklyn buddy.
That's funny. One of my best and dearest friends no longer works at Indigoot, but and has relocated a couple of times and now is in Richmond. But I've met G before, and I have several friends who are sort of like in that network,
No
and
way.
all again very solid people.
Shout out to you then. There you go.
Yeah, shout out Mike Bakta as well, one of my nearest and dearest. We'll see him on the internets tonight because we have a fantasy football draft.
Nice. So you do a bit of everything. You're figure skating, there's music. What happens? Do you quit? Do you move on? Like what's the progression from that to the music industry and your foray into what would become Bevo?
So you spoke of parents pushing, not making decisions for you, but trying to push you in the right direction, and resistance. And I was in upper part of high school thinking my sort of future was like go to college that has figure skating program, do that, coach ice skating, carry on. And my parents were like, that is a great future if that's the future you want. But we also would like to remind you that we think you're pretty smart, and like it could open up a lot of doors to apply to a bunch of different colleges. So we went on a road trip to the Northeast where my grandparents were from and where I always enjoyed visiting, and marched around a bunch of different schools. One of which was Brown University in Providence, which
Mm.
I was like, I love this place. It's great. I'm not getting in here. Fast forward probably 7 months later, I got my acceptance letter to Brown, and I was like, well, I guess that's what I'm doing. This is crazy. And that moment of like self doubt where you're like, did this happen? Because not that many people from West Virginia applied to this. Like, am I actually smart enough for this? Is this like a community where I'm going to feel at home coming from a small town, going to kind of, it wasn't a big city, but it was certainly a bigger city than I'd ever been in. Cutting out a lot of these details, I stumbled into a meeting my freshman year at the college radio station. And so Brown at the time had two different college radio stations. One that was very much a college radio station where you had your show, you programmed it, it was AM dial, respect, all of the like sort of great things about college radio. I had gone to the meeting of the commercial station run by college students, which was 95.5 WBRU. My next door neighbor in my freshman dorm wanted to be a jazz DJ. So, BRU, a unique college student run commercial alternative radio station that happened to play freeform jazz from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. in the overnights. Really, truly like a college radio station with some ads sprinkled in. The entire staff was college students, minus a sales team that sold said advertisements,
Mhm.
a professional program director, mostly to just steer the ship so that every 4 years it wasn't a completely new business, and then a professional like traffic manager and a couple other sort of jobs that needed consistency. But uh, I was hooked. My freshman year neighbor made it about 2 weeks. Um, I ended up staying the summer in Providence and working for the university during the day and doing overnights on the weekends. Um, During that sort of first 6 months or so, before we were allowed to be on the air, we did lots of fun things like sit in on meetings, hand out flyers after shows, wherein I met one of my best friends, who literally is still one of my best friends. I'm seeing her this weekend. She lives in New Jersey, and she is a VP of alternative at Odyssey now. She also stayed in music, but we handed out flyers after a Real Big Fish show at Lupo's in downtown Providence, and we immediately became friends. We both were on overnights for the summer. um, WBRU did the summer concert series in Providence where we put on like 6 to 8 free shows for listeners in a park. Kind of got to be hands on with that. And then really grew through the ranks. I was in charge of the staff of DJs for a while my sophomore year, which, much to my parents' chagrin, meant I never went home for any vacations. I was the music director my senior year. My friend Christine was program director at that, or was the assistant program director at the time. So the three of us, the two of us and our boss Tim, made up the music team. Learned about a weekly music meeting. Learned about how radio works in general. We dealt a lot with, the local reps in Boston, but also all of the East Coast reps. So had the chance to make a lot of friends, have a lot of relationships, eat a lot of free food, which as a college student was especially poignant. And most importantly, go see a lot of shows and really be introduced to music beyond what West Virginia was able to offer me. My our boss at the time, and he still is a huge tastemaker, especially in the Britpop space. He introduced me to bands like Radiohead and Doves and Coldplay and the like, and really just like dove in deep with us. And you'd be riding around with him in his Mazda Miata, and you would always hear like the song you were going to be obsessed with for the next like 2 months. So that was sort of my first foray into, oh, this music thing can be an actual job, and I'm getting this like real world experience while I'm also getting an amazing education. And they were like oddly and nicely compartmentalized separately. Never got any school credit for any of the radio stuff, and kept a full class load and had to, maintain academics so that I could still be involved in the radio station and be on campus because I had to be a student to be able to be involved. So it really was like kind of the perfect marriage of I got to study things that I thought were interesting, and I always had a B plan in case this music thing didn't work out. But from like sophomore year on, I kind of was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do for my life.
That's so cool. I really appreciate the background, and it's funny. We were saying earlier that these conversations they're so enlightening, and I love the story behind it. But I also love that how when you do this, there's synchronicities that appear. So we mentioned G and Indigood. I was a baseball player for my entire youth, basically, and in Europe, I went to the junior national level. So I was playing as the co-captain of the Czech junior national baseball team, and I even played in the Junior World Series in Moncton, New Brunswick, in I think '98.
Wow.
But I got a bit of a baseball scholarship, not a lot, partial scholarship that took me from Prague to the U.S., and I happened to be at Roger Williams University in Rhode Island.
Crazy.
Right. So I'm familiar with that state very well. I loved fall there. It was gorgeous. I didn't spend a lot of time in Providence, but well aware of it. And yeah, I mean, I think we played against Brown a few times. So that's so cool that we both have Rhode Island, the littlest state.
That's amazing. Rhode Island is like a state that's still so close to my heart. My husband has some friends that have moved there and have been there for forever. So I do have the opportunity, and it's not too far of a drive from here, but we have the opportunity to go back every couple of years. And it's so much fun to kind of relive those days, but also see how all of the changes have continued to take place in Providence, even since I've been there, which at this point has been a minute ago.
Absolutely. Um, we don't need to go through the whole history. I really want to talk about Evo and obviously the music industry and advice. So why don't we just jump to Vivo, and I'll ask something that is either going to be the hardest question or the easiest question.
Okay.
Summarize, summarize Vivo in one word.
Wow, that is a hard one. Um, I will say network.
Interesting.
And that means a lot of things to a lot of different people. From like a very basic perspective, we are the largest multi-channel network across YouTube. Have a have thousands and thousands of artist channels under the Vivo network.
Mhm.
Also, have a great focus on connected televisions and having human curated music channels across places like Samsung TV Plus, Hulu Live TV, etc. But also, I think of network in the terms of creating community. And on our side of the house, the artist booking side of the house, I think that network is really working together with labels, partners, distributors, managers, artists to create this great network of artists across all genres that are participating in our original content programs, whether that's a very structured program like Discover, which is our emerging artist program, series we shoot regularly in our New York and LA studios, Live from Vevo Studios and Control, or some of the higher level programs we shoot with more established artists like Official Live Performance. So it's kind of a double entendre, if you will,
Yeah.
a little bit on the like basic side and a little bit more on the take the word network and flip it on its head and make you think like what is a network beyond maybe a television network or a broadcasting network.
What would you say to, the average listener or watcher of this podcast that I've heard of Vevo. I see the logo on YouTube. I know maybe that it's the largest music video in the network in the world, but what does Vevo do? What would you answer to that question?
I mean, we're constantly dispelling the myth that Vevo is just around for the major labels to distribute music videos through, because though that is definitely part of our origin story, and part of our setup, Vevo has expanded over the last 15 years to include so many different distributors, so many different labels, label groups, partners. Um, so beyond obviously being a logo across YouTube, we are a broadcast network in ourselves in terms of our CTV platforms and how we have different channels across different genres, across different partners all over the world. But beyond that, it's really an opportunity for artists to be part of a network in that we have the ability to help raise emerging artists and promote them in sort of different ways because of how our multi-channel network is set up. We also have the power to work with artists on many different levels across original content and work with managers and labels and artists all the time about finding that like right moment where it makes the most sense for us to be able to produce a piece of content that's meaningful to an artist at the time where it's going to help push them up to the next level. We also obviously have a sales team that works tirelessly to sell and put sponsorships behind videos across our network. And that's not just the largest videos and largest artists on our network. That's, putting extra dollars behind artists that are programmed in different playlists that are getting monetized almost behind the scenes, but included in different groups where they're being monetized at higher values. So where Vevo is definitely a large presence on YouTube, we are so much more
Mhm.
outside of that.
That's super cool, and I'm learning a lot as we chat as well. Where would someone be, I guess, the most surprised to see that your content is being distributed? What's the craziest? Like, is there Vivo on a plane? Is there a private channel? Like, tell me about some of the cool things that we wouldn't expect.
We have had had Vivo on planes before. Um, we have a sales team actually, and we have distribution across connected televisions in Australia and New Zealand, which I think is super cool. That's probably the farthest place away for me. Um, but, we're in all of the usual suspects across the connected television platform. And obviously, you're finding us on YouTube. I
Yeah,
would say Australia is probably it's not surprising, but like the most exotic, if you will.
very cool. Um, this might be a dumb question, but what's the benefit of someone looking for music videos to go to discover videos, watch videos, consume the content through your site or your apps versus YouTube? What's the major difference, would you say?
So on the CTV and the curated side, we have a whole team, both in New York and in London, of actual people who are programmers who love music, who sit in meetings and sit at desks all day, immersing themselves in music, debating what videos should be played where, just like the good old days of music meetings and radio. And the benefit of finding us on CTV is that it's totally a lean back experience. You put on Vivo Pop and you get not just your favorite pop your favorite top 10 pop songs that you might hear on the radio. But we're also mixing in emerging artists, artists we believe in, Vevo original content with these artists. So you're being exposed to a wide array of artists and subgenres within each of these genres just by merely flipping on your TV and putting on one of the channels. And not only is it an experience that is sort of hyper focused on the different genres that we have, but it's also localized. So Vivo Pop here in New York looks different than Vivo Pop in Germany because we're making sure that we're programming for the consumers who are watching. And we know that each of the different markets is slightly different than the other, and making sure that we're tailoring it to the fans that are tuning in and to people who may have actually just stumbled upon us and are stopping because they're like, oh, I like this content. And then they're going to stay around to watch more music videos.
Very cool. I definitely have more Vivo questions, but I want to kind of pepper in some fun stuff just to keep conversation
Sure.
engaging. What's your favorite music video of all time?
It was a hard question to think about, not gonna lie. And I got down to two kind of classics, and then I have a couple other ones that just I've been thinking about a lot recently. Um, when I was kind of going through some of my favorites over the years, I realized that a lot of them had a common link, and that's Spike Jonze, who obviously is a crazy, famous, and amazing video director. But when it comes down to it, I think Weezer Buddy Holly is probably my favorite music video. Very simple concept, very well executed. Um, in that, I also remembered and rewatched for the billionth time Beastie Boys Sabotage, which
Yes.
another Spike Jonze video, very different, but also just like very well done and captures, I think, the essence of who they were as artists and kind of the spirit of the group. And just like, I don't know, that's to me my favorite thing about music video. It captures an artist in a certain moment in time and allows a song to have a life beyond just the meaning of the lyrics. And I think both those videos, for two very different reasons, do that so well. And I just like, they're both burned in my mind if I think about the song, which I think is like the greatest characteristic of a video that you could ever have. Like, you think of Buddy Holly, you just think about them playing on the talk show, like it, without fail. That said, I do have to give shout outs to Brown alum and one of my other favorite videos of all time, which is Okay Go, Here It Goes Again, which just is always a video. I say to people, like, if you do not have a budget to make a music video, just go watch that video. Damien's sister directed it. They used treadmills that they like. There was literally, that video is the most creative and the best sort of use of your resources that like you can ever really think about. Obviously, it's gone on to wild amounts of success,
Mhm.
but just like I remember the first time I watched that video being like, oh my god, how did they do that? Like, what is that?
I'm with you. I think simplicity is key. Sometimes, production gets too big and people overthink things and it becomes too serious almost, like just have fun. The creative process is supposed to be light and breezy. And ultimately, the video is going to be what it is at the end of it.
I mean,
Um,
that said, we all know those bands and artists that are just serious. They never break. You see them at a concert, they don't speak, they just play.
yeah.
Um, and those artists, great, do a very serious dramatic performance video. Like, I'm all for just making sure that whatever you're creating from a visual perspective is an accurate representation of your brand, your personality. Um, and which is why I always am like, let's take a step back here. Like, we're having fun. This should be fun. This is not like doctors saving lives.
Yeah.
Like, let's have a moment where we remember like this is all good fun and like we should be having fun making this.
I agree. And you made a good point about, staying on brand, so to speak. One of the things that we stress with our artists is having an organic message. Like, who are you, first of all, and what are you trying to convey with this album? Whatever that is, those two things, that is the message that you want to weave into the song titles, the single artwork, the album artwork, the tour posters, the music videos, so that people see this time in your life, this period, as something that's cohesively branded and marketed, rather than like stuff that's all over the place and no one understands that this is all the same album. What I'll come back to Vivo, but I want to know kind of from your perspective in 2025. You've got music videos, lyric videos, AI videos, visualizer videos, playthrough videos like the drum playthroughs, live videos. Is there something that, in your opinion, works best, or that's more important, or less important, or should up and coming artists just do it all? What do you think?
I mean, it's about using your resources wisely, first of all, which I think you can kind of do it all, just keeping the perspective of all of the different types of content you can make. Taking it back to Vivo for a second, we know that the YouTube algorithm feeds off of uploads, right? So we do know that having all different types of content and regularly posting content within your channel is important.
Oh,
It
really?
refreshes the algorithm, it brings more eyeballs to your content, it helps you surface content better. YouTube, right, designed with creators in mind. Artists are creators, but sort of a different ilk, right? Like you're not jumping on as a musician every Monday to post your latest episode of tutorial, and you're not posting one video on Monday, one video on Wednesday, one video on Friday, which obviously is something that on the creator side of YouTube is a pretty regular and like expected occurrence. So as you're posting music on YouTube and fitting an album cycle into the algorithm, we do know that posting multiple pieces of content and spreading them out a bit, whether that's a few days or a week or up to 2 weeks, we know that that can be helpful about bringing eyeballs back to your channel and raising your content more. Additionally, every sort of piece of content that you have that feeds back into your official video helps bring eyeballs back to your official video. So if you're giving fans a taste of a song, maybe your official video isn't ready the day the song comes out, you're going to post either a visualizer or a lyric video along with the song going live across other DSPs. Maybe you strategically wait, in the case of an established artist, several hours to put out that official video. So you're getting sort of that refreshed hit and you're reaching out to fans again,
Mhm.
hours later. But maybe for a more emerging artist, that's a couple of days later. And then you're following that up with, hey, this song live is going to be a totally different experience. So I'm going to post a live performance from a studio a few days after that. And then follow that up with a dance video, a tutorial. Um, if you haven't already posted a lyric video, a visualizer, we think that if you can kind of figure out how to create a suite of assets as you're creating the official video, then you're poised and ready to not just have one launch across YouTube for a song that you might be promoting for weeks or months, but then you have a host of other assets that all point fans back to the same song, but are giving them a different take on it. So,
Mhm.
our best advice is make as much as you can, as long as it's authentic, stays true to your brand, stays within the creative vision, not just obviously making content for the sake of making content. But I think that there are some easy ways to do that. If you have a 1 day video shoot, to have a B-roll camera just kind of capturing those off moments so you can create an easy behind the scenes that gets edited at the same time you're editing the music video. Maybe during lunch break you take your phone and you create a dance video, or like a here's how to play the chorus on guitar tutorial video. And you can kind of hopefully seamlessly fit that all into shoot day or a couple of days around shoot day, or knock out a content day with where you have camera and audio and everybody sort of already hired for the day, and you go through and are able to sort of bank content around a suite of releases or an album cycle. I do think that like the music video is super important,
Mhm.
but being able to have auxiliary pieces of content, especially on YouTube, only helps you raise your brand and raise awareness around a release.
That's incredible. I mean, I'm fascinated by that. I didn't realize that the YouTube algorithm essentially rewarded consistency and additional content. I mean, you hear about that obviously on socials like IG or TikTok, but I don't know why I never thought that the same thing would apply, which makes sense. If you have an artist that is active on socials, but then has like thrown 3 music videos up on their YouTube page over like a 4 year period, no wonder they're not getting movement and traction because they're not being active. So correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like the answer to the question is simply they all matter and you should do as many of them as possible as long as they're true to your vision and your authentic self.
100%. And I do think the other piece of the puzzle on the YouTube front, in addition to thinking about how this music video is going to get promoted across Instagram and TikTok, and other social platforms, also tapping into shorts, which
Mhm.
again plays back into YouTube as an ecosystem, but also thinking about your YouTube channel as more than just a content page, interacting with fans, posting comments, using all of the tools that you have within the channel to pull fans, to really like make it a place where you can actually interact and dive deeper with fans. All of that also positively signals the algorithm, but it also just creates another channel for you to be in more direct contact with fans. And we all know fans in this day and age are hungry for that
Mhm.
connection, no matter which way they can get it. And I think a lot of people forget that YouTube, beyond posting content, is another touch point that you can tap into for that type of stuff as well.
I mean, it still remains one of the biggest search engines in the world. It's funny. So, like, rewire the brain to think of YouTube as less of a DSP and more of a social network.
Yeah, more of a place that you can constantly be active in, even if you're not posting new content constantly. Because you can still tap back into the comments section and a lot of the different sort of more social features across the platform, even for content that's been up for a very long time.
That's so cool. I mean, you're giving me so many valuable lessons here, and everyone else that's going to watch this or listen to it. What is one of the most valuable lessons you've learned in your career so far?
I will say, I think the most valuable lesson I've learned, and one that I try to impart on my team and basically anyone who will listen to me, is to be nice. It's such a simple thing. I say this to my 3-year-old all the time too. Be kind. Um, we're all busy. We all have a lot to do. We all can get our feathers ruffled, if you will. We're in a creative space. There are a lot of personalities involved. But at the end of the day, we're all doing this for a common passion, a common love. And it kind of almost sounds silly, but we're all so interconnected.
Mhm.
It's doesn't serve you well to be mean, burn that bridge, say something just because you need to get that last word in. One, it's almost always going to come back to bite you because the interconnected circles of music just continue to get smaller and smaller the longer you're in the game. But more than that, your reputation and the energy that you're putting forth is a representation of your brand and a representation of where you work and who you are. And that's the person that I want to represent myself to artists and managers and labels and friends and my kid and my family. And I think some people forget that like you can be a real person in your real life, but this sort of like bulldozer at work that never says yes to anything. I think being able to be consistent and show the values that are important to you, both in your personal life, in your professional life,
Mhm.
um, makes the job so much easier. It makes it easier to navigate tough conversations, tough situations, and also just obviously makes you a human. And look, it's impossible to be nice and kind 100% of the time, but having that moment where you take a beat before you respond to something that's super annoying, or maybe the thing that you've said 3 times already, but nobody read the email to actually know that you've already said it.
Mhm.
Take that moment and just remember, be kind. Everyone has a different set of circumstances on their plate today.
Yeah.
That moment allows me that reset to uh, move forward with the attitude that I should have.
Wise words. I mean, I grew up in a house where we were taught be good for goodness sake. Why? Because you're supposed to. It's good to be good. End of story. Just be good. And I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. I think that you can be a bulldozer, to use your term, but still be kind, and keep in mind that
Exactly.
I like what you said. Things are not always as they seem. That guy might have, flipped you off or taken something out on you at that point in time because he got some horrible news this morning and he hasn't dealt with that. So give people grace because you never know what's going on in their space.
Exactly. And have patience. Everyone has a different set of things that they're dealing with. We
Yeah.
all know we have hundreds of tasks that we have to do for work or for personal life or for some combination of the two. And you don't know if you're emailing me on a day where I've checked 99 things off my to-do list and I'm like, yes, for the last one. Or I don't have time to respond to this and write you a novel. But you have to know that approaching all of those with kindness first
Yep.
starts you off in such a better
And
place.
the industry's small, so and there's so much competition. What is it, like 60 to 100,000 songs a day going up to Spotify? Like, if you want to be heard, be good, be kind. You're not going to be heard by not doing so.
The same is true. On the artist side of things, we've all worked with artists that are amazingly lovely and wonderful to work with. We've all worked with artists that are less so. Um, and I think the impact of taking the extra 2 minutes to be friendly, you don't have to go out of your way. You don't have to be someone's best friend. Doing this to, we're all doing this for a business purpose. But the legends that I've met from bookings throughout the day constantly go back to a place where they're very real people and they're very nice. And you know that there is some staying power on the artist side of things too, by putting that sort of attitude first and foremost as well.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, a lot of those nice artists are protected by teams of people who, some of whom are nice and some of whom I'm sure aren't. So they get to hide behind a barricade, if you will. But I do know that, like, sort of consistently, as I've had really some amazing opportunities to work with some of the greats in our business, just being like, whoa, they asked me how I was.
Mhm.
And just like them being people being very nice and very real people, which surprised me a bit in my youth. And now I've sort of come to know that it's a common theme.
It's nice when that happens. It's nice when people pay attention and show appreciation. I actually spoke with a guy named Richie Cavallari yesterday. He's fronting a band called Insight. They're a thrash kind of groove metal band. He comes from a vintage line of metalheads, the Cavallari family. And, we were having a really nice chat. He's been doing this for as long as I have. And he said, "Yeah, man, like Pure Grain Audio back in the day, like you guys were supporting us. I really appreciate that." And I was like, "Wow, remembered that that's who we were before V13 Media." And it was nice. It really makes you feel like what you're doing is worthwhile when people remember where you came from. Um, you've been at Vevo for like a decade plus. Obviously, you enjoy working there. You enjoy what you do. You're kind of a liaison between production and then the labels. What's one of the most memorable experiences you've had, or maybe on the same topic, like one of the people that was the kindest or the nicest in that moment?
Um, we had the privilege of being able to go on the road and shoot sort of mini doc with Mumford and Sons in 2019, around not this year's album, obviously, but the album before. And just being in their orbit for 4 or 5 days, we did 3 cities with them. And it was a tour that they were doing where they played arenas. But one of the days, they also played an acoustic set in a local record store, and we were able to capture performances, or we were able to capture B-roll both on these record store days and sort of arena B-roll capture for this film. We also shot with them at Grimey's in Nashville, a beautiful stripped back performance that still lives in their YouTube channel. But just being in that orbit and kind of watching them work as a band, which obviously lots of people, a big touring machine, but also just sort of feeling their personalities every day and being within the world just reminded me why I do this. A, a band I actually really love, but B, like people who are genuinely dedicated to the
Mhm.
craft, dedicated to the fans, and really just like lovely humans. And the film turned out amazing. We had sort of unprecedented access, which was fun. There was just a small group of us, four Vevo folks who got to live on the road together for 4 or 5 days. And it really cemented also my friendship and relationship with those three other people in a way that kind of felt like camp in high school, where you like entered not knowing as much about each other and left as best friends. And I think the combination of all of that experience leaves that one very high up in my book.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, there's something really special about meeting an artist that you already enjoy, and then you know how they say never meet your heroes. It's nice when you meet a hero, and the hero is like even cooler than you could have expected. I've been
Yeah.
fortunate enough to meet a lot of people too over the last 2 decades, and shout out to G again. My first proper interview ever. I think it was an audio interview because I was just using a little recorder, and you're transcribing by hand because you didn't have AI.
Oh
Uh,
man.
was with Life of Agony in Toronto on some big tour, and I had really only discovered them 5 or so years earlier, and I really fell in love with a few of their albums. And she's like, "Yeah, they're coming through Toronto on some big tour. You want to meet them?" And this was my first time ever doing this. Just started the website, and all of a sudden I'm on the tour bus, and there's like backstage and huge production, and it was a big venue too, and they were so chill. They were like, "Hey," they saw that I was nervous. Like, it's all good, man. Don't be nervous. Like, take your time. Like, they gave me the patience. They gave me the calm to allow me to be comfortable to do what I was going to do. And I think that that was such an important starting point for me to see, like, oh, they're human like me, and this is all good.
I love that. It's like those seminal experiences that one are a huge step forward in your professional life, just in terms of being able to be in the room, but also eventually accomplish a task. For us, it was put together a very big piece of content and get it across the line, which obviously lots of things get shot. And then that secondary sort of element is making sure that it actually lives to see the light of day and fans get to see it, which is, I think, an achievement separate from just capturing the content.
Absolutely.
But I do think that like those linked together are all part of the book I will probably never write, but like sort of those moments that remind you again why you're doing this and why you're here.
Definitely. I mentioned AI. I mean, I feel like you have to be living under a rock to not realize that blockchain technology and AI are like the thing, and they're happening and they're coming, and there's no avoiding it. In fact, it'll be more and more prevalent as the next few months and years go by. What is Vivo doing to capture that technology, if anything? And also, two-part question: what does a music video look like in 2030?
Well, I will say I do think there are innovations that are being made that are going to make capturing music video content and making content a totally different sort of beast than maybe it has been before. And I think that the opportunities to be able to be more creative and potentially use to be able to be more creative and make more content are really exciting to me and really interesting. I will say at Vivo, on the programming side of things, we do lean hard on actual human curation
Mhm.
because we do truly believe that when it comes to programming music videos, especially on the TV platforms, but also as we promote and program things across YouTube and across the rest of the world, we do think that the human curation does play a very, very important role and will continue to play an important role in that world.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, we have to do a good job of balancing the two. Like, technology is inevitable. How we use it is the key. And I think that a lot of what we do with our artists is a combination of the two. But technology like AI is always done in a way where it's not the creation, it's maybe the tasking or something like that. Like, I can't use AI to create this conversation. This is a natural, organic, free flowing conversation. I can leverage it to like edit this, transcribe this, make clips and stuff like that. But then the creation itself has to be organic and real. Do you feel the same way, or does?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a great optimization tool.
Mhm.
But I think the human aspect of things as a general principle, like you were saying, we can't create this conversation via AI because we're both bringing our individual perspectives into this conversation and playing off of each other and
Yeah.
having a connection. But it does help you in editing and putting this content up. And so I do think that that applies to the larger whole in that like it can be a very useful tool
Mhm.
for helping artists get off the ground and optimize parts of their business and parts of what they're doing, but I don't think anything replaces the human creative process.
I agree. Um, the music industry obviously has like a relentless pace. Technology does too. Social media does too. Uh, in your experience so far, working with a lot of younger up and coming artists, like what is the key to surviving? To avoiding burnout, to keeping going.
Taking a minute for sure. Again, I know it's very easy to get caught up, and this is not a music industry problem. This is just a working person problem, if you will.
Mhm.
It's very easy to get caught up in like, this is my job. I'm the only one who can do this. I cannot go away because who else is going to do all these 800 other things while I'm gone? Um, but I have learned over the years that shutting down makes coming back a more productive experience. And we all have coworkers and people that we trust, hopefully surrounding us. I know I do. That when obviously handled responsibly, you certainly can have people step in so that you can have real time away. I haven't always been great at being able to say I'm shutting off email or I'm not going to be on Slack. There's certainly moments where I'm like, I'm going away, but I will be available or I can check in. And then there are some moments, AKA when I went on my honeymoon, um, when I was on maternity leave, it was like a real, actual eye-opening sort of experience because like I actually couldn't work. I had a lot of other things on my plate as well, but
Mhm.
and those several months passed by so quickly, and I came back and was like, oh, I did it. I actually didn't really look at email till very much at the end of things when I was like catching myself back up and like, look, I'm still a whole person and I'm still good at my job.
Mhm.
So, very long-winded answer to like I think those meaningful times away and not just a honeymoon or maternity leave, like going away for a week on vacation and actually being like, I'll be back a week from Monday. Like short of something going crazy, I'm actually going away. I'm enjoying time with my family. And then other little things too. I definitely try to make sure my workday is stacked and that when I come home and eat dinner with my son and put him to bed, there's like a 2.5 hour period where I'm like phone down, laptop closed. Like even if I know I'm gonna pick back up and work before I go to bed because there's something that's happening that I need to address or something that needs to get finished up before the next day, making that space in creating that time where I'm not feeling like I'm being pulled at both ends is super important to me. And
Mhm.
it's, I think, really important to foster a healthy mental space for yourself as well. But even beyond that, it's like if you're young and just getting started in this business and you're at a dinner, put your phone in your bag.
Yeah.
You don't need to talk to like you're gone for an hour. Like short of like a deadline or like something going live or a project happening, like be fully present with your friends, be fully present with your family. Know how to manage your time to the point where you can have time away and have it be meaningful and be able to fully relax and not constantly feel like you're like picking up your phone to like check your email or do what you need to do.
Yeah, that's so accurate. And there's so many things you've just said that I'm a big believer in, a lot of which have actually happened in my life within the last few weeks. I believe that you have to create space and take space to keep up with the pace. And those are two different things, right? Like taking a space is what you said. Take time away, turn everything off, relax, be with yourself. That goes hand in hand with being present, being in the moment. When I'm with my kids, there's no phone. I'm in dad mode, and when I'm in work mode, I'm in work mode. When I'm in gym mode, I'm in gym mode. It just, but you also have to create space. And it's funny that you mentioned stacked because a week ago, after my business partner called me and said, "Oh man, school's starting up. I'm going to lose some time. I'm stressed about like not being able to have time." I said, "Okay, well, what do we know? In order to have time, we have to create time. So we have to take time to create time. How do we do that? We find ways to be more efficient or optimize." So we start to research meetings. And I said, "Okay, I've done the research. We're going to try stacking our meetings." So we moved all of our internal meetings to one day and all of our client meetings to another day. And that immediately freed up 3 days in the week, not including weekends, for no meetings or emergency meetings. And the productivity went through the roof immediately because I was like, oh my God, I woke up today and I was at my computer at 6 or 7 and I had 8 hours uninterrupted to just email and task. And it felt incredible. So you have to do all of those things and continuously learn and reprogram and try new things to do that. So we're on
Yeah,
the
I
same
mean,
page.
I think as you grow, your at least my experience in the music business, as you grow, there are more meetings.
Yeah.
I don't know where they come from or why they exist, but there are so many of them. But it's constantly figuring out how to optimize yourself in terms of, okay, so here's all the things that need to get done. Here are all the tasks that are impeding me from actually getting those things done. How do I balance all of them out? Because the other thing you don't want to do as a leader or as a manager is like be in a meeting and not be present like
Yeah.
this, be on your phone or sending a Slack or sending an email, because then you're like kind of not really doing either. You're sending probably an email that you didn't proofread and you're not really paying attention to the person you're supposed to be paying attention to. And then it's like, cool, like that's not really accomplishing any of the tasks or
Yeah.
goals at hand.
You're absolutely right. I mean, there's a lot of research that shows there's a certain amount of ramp up and ramp down time from tasks, right? Like I think the average is 15 minutes. It takes you 15 minutes to get into your flow, and then it takes 15 minutes to get out of the flow. So if you have an hour-long meeting and then an hour gap before the next hour-long meeting, that means that technically 30 minutes of that next hour is wasted by just getting back into the flow. Whereas if you have meetings back to back, at least you're in meeting mode, and if you're staying present, you're getting more stuff done. I guess the same thing applies to people creating videos. If you want to, if someone like Annie is telling you, listen, artist, you're new, you need a lyric video, music video, a visualizer, an AI video, it's okay. You'll be okay. But you got to do it all and you got to figure out how to get into the flow to create.
I mean, I think it's prioritizing what remains true to what you actually need to accomplish. Like, right? Like, if you approach it as like, I have to create all these things because I have to check all these boxes, chances are all of the content is going to be not as good as anything could have been. Whereas if you're approaching this with like, I have this great idea for an official music video. This is how we're going to accomplish it. This is how, like, my friend directs things. I'm going to tap into him because I know like we jive creatively and I know that like we can start with this idea and really with riff to work it out. And then you get part of the way through the process and you're like, how do I expand this to be like more than just an official music video, but how do I create all of the assets in the suite of other things that I need to create around all of this? And all of a sudden you're thinking holistically, but it's all coming from a good idea as opposed to being like, oh my God, I have to do so many things and I don't know how to start any of them. And you're just like trying to start all of them at the same time. Like, I think starting with one good thing and then figuring out how you can optimize from there is one, easier and more conducive to the creative process, but also just a way to make sure that everything's organic, makes sense, stays true to what your vision is for song, album, EP, band or artist profile in general. And it just comes from a place within as opposed to like me saying, hey, it's really great if you create all these assets. And the same applies for us when we're creating original content. It's like, yeah, we shoot 2 songs with every artist that comes through our studio, but how else do we add in a social component or how do we promote all of this content both within the YouTube ecosystem and outside of the YouTube ecosystem? We have 3 to 4 hours with each of these artists as they come through either New York or LA. How do we optimize that time? But also, how do we create a space where artists can be creative and feel
Mhm.
true to themselves, and aren't just like answering 10 questions because they're the same 10 questions we ask every artist? Um, and kind of coming from that place of creativity as a starting point and building out from there, I think is one of the major philosophies behind how we kind of partner with artists to create content.
That makes sense. It's funny you're talking about things while working on things, and I think that that's super efficient, and it's something that we do as well. That I'm a believer in now. It's almost like the concept of the jam session. So rather than setting up meetings to talk about the things we're going to do, let's set up a meeting to talk about it, but we call them working sessions. So we might be in marketing mode. We might be like, visualizing all the different things that we could do to market this artist, but let's create the assets in real time. Let's, if we're working on a biography, let's type out the draft together. Let's actually come out of this meeting with the momentum rather than, okay, everyone break, now go off and do the work. We find that results are much stronger if we're doing the work while talking about it, because when you break from that meeting or from that production, you have something tangible that's much easier to then finish.
It's also less whisper down the lane of like, hey, the thing we talked about in the meeting, like who's doing it?
Yes.
And what did we decide? And where are we doing
Yeah.
it?
It's happened a few times is we go into those working sessions on something and we're like, oh my God, it's an hour later, the meeting's done, and we've finished the deliverable. Like that task that we wanted to do, it's done because we just did it as a team in a session. Speaking of doing things, I got a couple more questions. Is that cool with you?
Yeah, go for it.
So I'll do one for artists and then one now back to Vivo. So I know that you guys have so much going on. This is more of an abstract question. How does Vivo support artists outside of music videos and getting videos online?
Wow. Um, there are several ways. They're all sort of tangibly related back to music videos,
Yeah.
because it's the bread and butter of what we do. But I mean, original content is the first thing that comes to mind and the closest to my heart. Really, we have an offering of originals that we shoot with artists from very, very emerging to very, very established. And we've worked hard over the years to create of a suite of offerings so that we're not just working with an artist once and then never seeing them again. We kind of think of it as welcoming them into the Vivo family and then continuing to find a place where we can support that artist as they continue to grow and as we continue to grow. So let's talk about my personal favorite time of the year, which is right now, which is when we are in process with our Artists to Watch campaign, which is tapping 20 or so artists at the end of every year that we say these artists are going to break the following year. So we're currently Artists to Watch 2026 mode, going through submissions, listening to music, looking at marketing plans, doing the whole nine, where we then come together as a team and get to like debate all kinds of music and have a healthy, happy, fun music conversation, which lasts for hours and hours and hours and hours, but in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Um, but that sometimes is the first time an artist has been part of the Vivo ecosystem. Sometimes they've already done something in the Discover umbrella, like Discover New Music, which is where we work with an artist kind of at the earliest standpoint, where we create an asset without even shooting with them, to kind of introduce them to fans and say, if you're a fan of this artist, you'll also like this new artist that you might not know yet. So it's kind of a wide range of artists, all on the emerging, about to break level. But like once you've already been a part of that program, then it's like, how do we support you on album two, EP3? Like, where do you live within sort of this Vivo ecosystem? And it's been so fun to watch artists grow as we've continued to grow and evolve. Um, I was on the first shoots we ever did with Billie Eilish, which were amazing. And you saw her and her brother in person and just like knew instantly that that was going to be the next hugest thing. But just being able to be in the room where their Discover sessions were recorded was just magic. And obviously, we've gone on to shoot basically every series we've ever had with Billie, which has been a privilege. Um, Julia Michaels, I was there for her first ever taped performance, which was Discover. We went on to shoot so many other things with her, and really got a chance to form a relationship there that has lasted even sort of outside of music, which has been amazing.
Mhm.
Similar stories with Halsey, Jessie Reyez, like the artist names go on, but we don't ever approach a single booking as just a sort of transactional, we're here for this moment with this artist. It's more about creating that relationship and bringing them into the fam, if you will, which sounds a bit cheesy, but is actually real.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, I think that's Vevo beyond just the official music video. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, obviously, helping artists monetize at a higher rate. Just that's important to artists in this era where everyone's, struggling
Mhm.
to monetize their content. Um, and really beyond that, having humans that are curating your content outside of the on-demand environment. I come from music television. The part of my history we skipped was me working at Fuse TV for a long period of time. And so I do think that those curated CTV channels that we do are such, uh, we're back in the cycle where people want to watch music videos as a long form piece for an extended period of time. And I just hold that so close to my heart because I do think that that curation and being able to just kind of put on music and have it play all day is a really important piece.
Mhm. That's that's awesome. I'm happy that you get. I mean, I knew that you were already doing so much for artists, but it's nice to hear that there's so much more. I'm a big believer in village, and I tell everyone in my life, more or less, family first. If you don't have family, if you're not taking care of your family, then there's so much less that you're going to get accomplished. Uh, personal help, everything. Family always first. Um, being around production so much, and I guess alluding back to my previous question about what does a music video look like in 2030, I think that we're seeing so much different discovery. I mean, I would have never thought that someone would go and do an album drop or an album stream or a listening party on Fortnite and get like tens of millions of listeners. I think that we're going to see huge change with videos. I mean, who knows? Maybe it'll be like, a podcast like this where someone's doing the debut of their song on the podcast or even a music video. Who knows where it's going to go? How do you feel about young artists, up and coming artists, new artists, and video content when it comes to the production? Like we used to be, you're talking about the Beastie Boys sabotage video, like, outfits and blocking off roads and big numbers. And now it's like you can shoot, I think it's up to like what, 16K on certain phones now. Like you get crazy quality on devices, so you can do things cheap and at home. What's your opinion on video production?
To me, it comes down to the idea and the creative and the execution, right? You can have the fanciest camera known to mankind, and if you're not really good at using it, your product is not going to be that great.
Right.
Um, but I truly think that being able to shoot content on your phone has opened up a world to artists that might not have the privilege of a major distribution deal at this point in their career. But I think all artists have the creativity within them to come up with, hey, this is my song and this is how I envision people seeing it,
Mhm.
which is sort of the root of what a music video is. And if you can take that vision and execute it, whether it's your friend shooting it on the phone with no help and it's a one shotter walking down the street because somehow that is reflective of what the song actually is, amazing. Um, if that's shutting down streets and having 2 days of production and you have the resources to do that and have a choreographer and a cinematographer and a creative director and all of those things, also great. But I think it's just smart to use your resources wisely and to make sure that at the end of the day, the idea and the creativity and the thinking behind it, and how it sort of all, again, goes back to your brand, goes back to your song, goes back to your album. I think those are the most important things, and it's less important how you shoot it, as long as you get a good result.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense with the sport analogy. And you can buy all the best ski gear in the world, but if you've never skied, what use is the gear to you? You got to focus on the core task. So have a great idea, focus on like the delivery of that idea and less about what you're going to use to capture it.
Yeah. I mean, you obviously have to address whatever limitations come across your path to creating music video or a song in general, if you're going to go back to that. But dealing with all of those limitations and persevering through them also, I think, helps the final product as a whole. So sometimes the fight actually contributes to the creative, but I think ultimately just making sure that you're happy and believe in the creative and the final product. It doesn't matter if you shot it on a whatever the fanciest camera in the world is, or on my old iPhone.
Yeah, fair. When, if not already, is Vivo getting into podcast content?
We are.
Yay!
I'm happy to link you to. There's a woman on our programming team who liaises to all the podcasts, and so once we're off camera, I'm happy to pass along her contact.
That's great. I mean, you mentioned long form content, and I really think it's a huge part of where things go in the future. We got kind of down this rabbit hole where everything was clips, right? Because of social media and stuff, everything's 15 seconds and 30 seconds. And what happens is that so much stuff is taken out of context and you don't get the texture behind what it is. And I think long form is going to happen that way. I also really see a lot of videos now going towards these like short films and coming out of this 3 to 5 minute thing. And now I'm seeing 7 and 14 minute clips. And it's really cool because you get so much more about the band, so much more of their story and their message. And it's very different than just what it was in the past with short videos.
It's funny. There's been a long stretch of time where whenever someone says the word long form, I have to say music video content or long form, because we've reached a point where regular content is short form content and music videos are long form content because they're longer than 15 to 30-second clips. And I'm always like, wait, what? Which type of long form? Oh, actual long form.
Annie, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for being on the Heart Dealer podcast. I would love to just ask you: is there anything that you want to end on?
Um, I mean, I think my advice for the folks that I do a fair amount of just chatting with people who are looking to get into music. I definitely have worked with university and, some of the She Is the Music and some of the other sort of, especially focused on women in music, resources to work with and mentor some younger folks that are trying to get into music. And I think kind of my biggest piece of advice is, follow your passion. And be willing to say yes. It's just like sometimes you find yourself in a situation where you had no idea that this is a path you're going down. Me going to that meeting in college led to all of this. And it did, because I said yes and was open to the new experience and took on hundreds and thousands of new challenges from then until now, some
Mm,
of which were scary and huge, some of which were like, I got this. But I think being open to possibility is really key, especially if you're trying to break it in the business side of music things, also on the artist side. But just kind of taking that leap of faith and being out there. So that's what I'll end it with.
appreciate it. Yeah, nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? Take those risks.
Exactly.
Thank you again so much. I'm sure we'll talk again in the near future.
Yes, thank you. This was great.